There is a cycle of regret that can feel endless, each night bringing a fresh rehearsal of old mistakes and missed chances. But tonight, let God's message interrupt that cycle. His love is strong enough to break even the deepest patterns of guilt. As you enter into night prayer for regret, shift your meditation away from your failures and rest on the unwavering promises of Psalm 91. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. In these quiet moments, you are invited to dwell in that secret place, safe, accepted, forgiven. The cycle of regret is not your inheritance. God's message today is a promise of deliverance, a holy assurance that you are shielded from the relentless voice of shame. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that healing is not linear. It often means returning again and again to the truth until it is written deeper than regret itself. Let God's word be your shield tonight, blocking every accusation that tries to chain you to your past. Let your Christian meditation for sleep be filled with soft, sacred truths. You are loved, forgiven, and made new. Psalm 23 whispers over you, He restores my soul, not once, but again and again. Even now, God is restoring what regret tried to ruin. As you breathe slowly, envision His peace settling into your chest, stilling the chaos, softening the sting of shame. Pope Leo the Capo offers this quiet wisdom. Renewal does not begin in strength, but in surrender. You don't need to fix everything tonight. You simply need to rest in the arms of the one who holds your future secure. This moment is not about striving. It's about receiving. It's about trusting that even in fear, you are not alone, and even in weakness, you are not without worth. The God who speaks peace over storms is speaking peace over you now. Let your anxiety prayer shift into trust. Let every breath become a silent yes to healing and to the life God is still writing for you. How has anxiety clouded your ability to believe you can begin again? Are you willing to trust God to bring renewal even in the midst of fear? Be renewed in the spirit of your mind, Ephesians 4:23, KJV. When anxiety threatens your peace, invite God's truth to calm your heart. Surrender or type "Renew me, Lord" as a sacred commitment to receive God's message of peace and new life tonight. Psalm 23 leads you to a place where hope is not a dream but a direction. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Christian meditation for sleep becomes prophetic rest, a trust that healing is in motion even while you sleep. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that healing is holy work, and that work is already underway in your surrendered heart. You are not too late, too far gone, or too broken to see beauty again. Pope Leo XX breathes life into this truth. Your tomorrow holds more redemption than your yesterday held regret. God's message today is hope, not wishful thinking but anchored assurance that the one who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. Shame may have spoken loudly in the past, but tonight hope speaks louder. You are being prepared for a future full of peace and purpose. In the deep stillness of this night, as the echoes of old regrets begin to fade, God's message comes with clarity and calm. Walk in mercy, for you are already forgiven. You no longer need to question if His grace is real. It is. You no longer have to wait for a sign. This is it. God's message today reaches beyond doubt and into your soul with the certainty of divine love. Night prayer for regret becomes a path, not a pit, a walk forward, not a fall back. Psalm 91 reminds us, He shall give His angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. You are not walking alone. This is not a journey of shame, but a pilgrimage of restoration. T.D. Jakes reminds us that we walk differently when we know we're covered, when we believe we're forgiven. You are not crawling through condemnation. You are walking upright, wrapped in mercy. As the night deepens into holy silence, God's message tonight turns the page. This is no longer the chapter of regret. It is the beginning of peace. You've carried the weight long enough. Now, through this night prayer for regret, surrender it fully. Let it fall from your shoulders like a garment that no longer fits. God's grace is a new page, untainted, unwritten, yet already filled with mercy. Psalm 91 declares, "He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust." That covering is not only for safety, it is for sleep, for stillness, for starting over. What you did is not who you are. What you regret does not cancel the promises spoken over your life. Lisa Bevere reminds us that God does not give blank slates because he ignores the past, but because he transforms it. Meditation for sleep tonight becomes a turning of the page, a holy motion leaving yesterday's weight behind. Psalm 23 assures you, "He restoreth my soul." Restoration is not mere repair, it is renewal, a rebirth of vision, purpose, and rest. As you breathe, imagine God writing over your regrets with lines of grace. Beloved, redeemed, new. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that deep healing often begins in quiet acceptance. This is that moment. Pope Leo Califorte gently affirms, "Redemption writes with ink that regret cannot erase. The new page is yours, not earned but freely given." God's message today is that healing begins in surrender. And tonight, you are safe enough to let go. As the night nears its final watch, let your soul settle into the sacred truth that has held you from the beginning. You are loved, not vaguely, not conditionally, but personally and fully. God's message tonight is not another whisper of regret, but a declaration of unshakable affection. You are not merely forgiven, you are cherished. This night prayer for regret is not about escaping guilt, it's about returning to love. Tonight is not just the closing of another day, it is the doorway to freedom from everything yesterday tried to define you by. God's message tonight is a quiet yet thunderous invitation. You are not who your regrets say you are. Through this night prayer for regret, you are stepping into a deeper spiritual awakening, where truth becomes louder than guilt and grace more familiar than shame. Psalm 91 is not just a shield from outside harm, it is protection from the inner storm of self-condemnation. He shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. Even in the secret places of your heart where no one else sees the turmoil, God surrounds you with mercy. In the silence of this night, let go of the weight of yesterday. D.D. Jakes reminds us that spiritual awakening often begins at the lowest point, when we have nothing left but a whisper and a need. That whisper tonight is enough. You are not abandoned. You are being pursued by grace. Tonight is not the end. It is the threshold of tomorrow's healing. God's message tonight wraps around your weariness and whispers a sacred promise. Regret will not follow you into the morning. Though your heart may still ache and the past still echoes, the sun is rising on mercy that never runs dry. Night prayer for regret is your quiet stand against despair, a bold declaration that grace holds the final word. Psalm 91 assures us, "With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation." This salvation is not only eternal, it's emotional, personal, and deeply healing. Your worst day does not cancel your calling. Lisa Bevere reminds us that God's mercy renews not only your spirit, but also your capacity to hope again. Even if you've prayed before and still feel the sting of yesterday, tonight is different. Tonight, you come not just to release pain, but to believe in what God is preparing next. Christian meditation for sleep is a sacred place of exchange. The ashes of regret for the oil of gladness, the sorrow of shame for the joy of release. The shepherd of Psalm 23 prepares a table before you. Even in the presence of your past, you are welcome to sit, to rest, to receive. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that grace is not a feeling, it's a fact, anchored in the heart of God. That fact declares, you are not what you did, you are who God calls you to be. Pope Leo II reminds us that the end of your night is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your becoming. Let grace be what closes this chapter, not shame. Let peace be what cradles your soul as sleep draws near. You do not lie down as someone condemned. You rest as someone redeemed. The pain you carry is not proof of rejection, but an open doorway to deeper healing. As you bring your burdens to God in prayer, let your honesty become the altar where mercy descends. Every sigh, every tear, every whispered "God, I'm sorry," they are all gathered and cherished by a love that knows no bounds. God's message tonight is this: your worth is not measured by your lowest moments, but by the boundless compassion of your Creator. Whether you are lying awake in sleeplessness, praying through anxiety, or seeking spiritual awakening in the silence, His forgiveness is the balm that soothes every scar. In the quiet sanctuary of this night, as you seek God's message for your own regrets and forgiveness, let your heart expand with compassion for all who suffer in silence across the world. There are souls tonight, children, families, and the innocent, whose dreams have been broken by fear, violence, or sorrow. As you bring your burdens to God, pause and offer a gentle night prayer for every heart longing for safety and healing. God's message tonight is not only for you, but for all who are hurting. His mercy is wide enough to hold the entire world. Release your anxiety now and join a meditation that transcends borders and brokenness. Pray softly, Lord of all peace, embrace every soul burdened by suffering tonight. Cover the innocent with your mercy, restore the brokenhearted, and let your healing light shine where darkness has stolen hope. May your love reach those whose cries go unheard, and may your presence bring peace that no violence can destroy. This intercession reflects the heartbeat of Psalm 91. God's protection extends to all who seek shelter beneath His wings. Psalm 23 assures us that even when we walk through the valley of shadows, no one is unseen and no sorrow is ignored by God. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that healing is a communal miracle. We rise and recover together. Your act of interceding for others, even in your own pain, draws you closer to the heart of God. Every prayer you offer is a seed of mercy planted in unseen soil, destined to bear fruit in ways you may never witness. God's message tonight calls you to become an instrument of comfort and hope, a vessel through which peace can flow to places beyond your reach. In my struggle, can I make space to pray for those suffering far beyond my own reach? What might God do through my small prayer for peace? Pray for one another that you may be healed. The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. James 5:16, KJV. Even when you feel powerless, your prayers reach further than you imagine. God moves through every word spoken in love. Offer a simple prayer for global healing tonight, or type peace as a sign of your intercession for the hurting everywhere. Let God's peace begin with your prayer. As this night draws to a close, God's message stands like a lamp in the darkness. There is no brokenness too great for His grace to mend. You have brought your regret, your sleeplessness, your aching prayers, and now the invitation is to end this day not with guilt, but with grace. Night prayer for regret is not about reliving your past one last time. It's about releasing it. Let your final waking thoughts echo the truth of Psalm 91. Because He hath set His love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will be with him in trouble. You have set your love on the one who already loved you first, and that love redeems every shadowed corner of your day. The weight of your failures is no match for the weight of His forgiveness. Lisa Bevere reminds us that we are not powerful enough to undo God's mercy. No matter how loudly shame has spoken today, God's message speaks louder. You are forgiven. Hear the voice of God saying, "Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. You are mine." Isaiah 43:1. In this moment of Christian meditation for sleep, release every accusation, every haunting memory, every word of shame that has clung to your identity. You are not disqualified. God's message tonight is not reserved for the perfect, but for the willing. Let Psalm 23 lead you beside still waters, where even the most restless spirit finds rest and renewal. Your life is not measured by what you regret, but by the love that redeems you day by day. What accusations of shame do I need to release into God's hands tonight? Am I willing to believe God's forgiveness is bigger than my past? Even I, am He that blotteth out thy transgressions for mine own sake. and will not remember thy sins. Isaiah 43:25, KJV. When shame rises up, speak out God's truth. Remind yourself that you are His, and forgiveness is your new identity. Whisper a prayer of release, or type set free if you're ready to let God's mercy cover your shame and lead you forward into hope. Am I allowing the gentle shepherd to lead me through my pain? What would it look like to rest in His arms instead of hiding from His presence? I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. John 10:11, KJV. When regret weighs heavy, surrender to the shepherd's gentle lead. He longs to guide you into peace and restoration. Rest in His love tonight. Whisper or type "Shepherd, lead me" as your prayer for restoration and return. In meditation, breathe deeply and receive this truth. You are chosen not because you are flawless, but because you are loved beyond measure. Every breath is a small act of faith, surrendering regret and taking hold of mercy. Allow Christian meditation for sleep to gently retrain your thoughts, teaching your spirit to dwell on God's faithfulness instead of your flaws. Your whispered anxiety prayer is heard, and heaven's response is unwavering grace. As Pope Leo XIV quietly echoes, redemption flows wherever regret surrenders to grace. Where am I stuck in cycles of regret that God is inviting me to break tonight? Am I ready to meditate on God's protection and favor instead? He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust. Psalm 91:4, KJV. When regret resurfaces, choose to meditate on God's promises. Let His truth become louder than any accusation. Write, "I'm covered," as a sign of your trust in God's protection. Or share how meditation on Psalm 91 is helping you find release from regret. As midnight deepens and memories press in, God's message tonight assures you that forgiveness does not erase your story, but transforms it. You may carry regrets, mistakes, words, and wounds that echo in the darkness and seem unforgettable. Yet the power of God's forgiveness is not in forgetting the past, but in healing it. Night prayer for regret becomes an act of trust, placing every broken piece into the hands of a God who redeems, restores, and renews. Psalm 91 promises safety for the soul who seeks refuge. Even what you remember with sorrow, God remembers with compassion. Lisa Bevere reminds us that your identity is not chained to what you regret, but released by what you receive. Tonight, let it be a night of receiving grace. Let sleeplessness become an invitation to deeper healing as you accept that you are not defined by your failures, but by the mercy of God. God's message today is that forgiveness is a river that flows through every valley of the soul, leaving hope where only barrenness once remained. Christian meditation for sleep is not about erasing memory, but about letting God's love be the lens through which you see yourself and your story. The anxiety prayer that rises from your heart tonight is not ignored. God's message is always attentive, always offering another chance. Pope Leo XIV's wisdom echoes through the stillness. Redemption is not forgetting, but being made new. Can I believe that I am truly forgiven, even when I remember my regrets? Will I allow God's healing to transform my memories? Forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. Philippians 3:13, KJV. When past regrets resurface, choose to view them through the lens of God's compassion. Let every memory become an opportunity for grace to shine brighter. Say aloud or type "healed and forgiven" as a declaration of your new identity, or pray for someone else who needs the assurance of God's healing and mercy tonight. Christian meditation for sleep becomes a holy return to that quiet place beside still waters, where God gently says, "I have not forgotten you." Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that healing requires gentleness, and the Good Shepherd is always tender with the brokenhearted. Let this night be more than a return to sleep. Let it be a return to security, to the arms of the one who laid down his life for you. You are not just wandering, you are being sought by love itself. You do not have to hide your pain or pretend you're whole. The shepherd already sees the bruises and still chooses to carry you. Pope Leo IV softly whispers into the stillness, where regret ends, restoration begins, and the shepherd is already walking with you there. Let tonight be your moment of surrender. No striving, no fixing, just following the sound of grace calling your name. Whether you're sleepless from regret or wakeful with worry, God's message tonight declares that His mercies are new every morning. In meditation, release the lie that your life is too far gone for beauty. Lisa Bevere reminds us that God specializes in making all things new, even the parts of you that feel beyond redemption. Imagine the shepherd leading you into green pastures of forgiveness, beside quiet waters of hope. Let your anxiety prayer become a song of possibility, not a plea of despair. Pope Leo VI's sacred wisdom echoes through your spirit. The arms of forgiveness are always open, and redemption never comes too late. Am I willing to release yesterday and trust God for a new beginning tonight? What hope is God offering me as I meditate on His promises? Behold, I make all things new. Revelation 21 verse 5. KJV. When regret and worry threaten your peace, believe in God's power to restore and renew every broken place. Let faith anchor your heart to His promise of new beginnings. Declare new beginning over your life, or write a prayer asking God to restore what feels lost. Then rest, trusting that your story is not over, but being rewritten with grace. As the night stretches on and regret tries to tell you that you are unworthy, hear God's message tonight. Your value is not defined by your past, but by His unwavering love for you. This is the heart of night prayer for regret, offering your wounds and failures to the one who sees beyond them and still calls you beloved. Shame has no place where forgiveness reigns. God does not see you through the filter of your failures, but through the compassion of His heart. This is the beginning of restoring your self-worth, not by striving, but by receiving. T.D. Jakes reminds us that the voice of accusation loses its power when drowned out by the affirmation of God's truth. You are not merely tolerated, you are cherished. Psalm 91 becomes your shield, defending you from condemnation and reminding you that you are watched over and deeply valued. Even when sleeplessness brings only anxiety prayer, God's message is not one of punishment, but of belonging. Psalm 23 paints a portrait of the shepherd who pursues you with goodness and mercy, continually redefining your worth at every turn. Let tonight be the beginning of a new relationship with yourself, one anchored in the truth that God says, "You are not your failures, you are my beloved." Christian meditation for sleep is not about forgetting who you are, but about remembering who you've always been in God's eyes. Pope Leo XII, wisdom lingers like a blessing. The arms of forgiveness lift you above every label regret has tried to assign. What labels from your past do you need to surrender to God tonight? Are you ready to see yourself as God sees you, redeemed and worthy? You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, an holy nation, a peculiar people. When regret rises to accuse, meet it with God's truth. Let His voice define your identity, not the shadows of yesterday. Whisper, "I am worthy," as you rest, or speak a word of unconditional love and acceptance to someone who needs it tonight. You are not your past, you are His. When darkness feels heaviest and every regret seems louder in the stillness, God's message tonight is a tender call to embrace the fullness of forgiveness. Let your night prayer for regret become a sacred moment of surrender, not only seeking God's pardon but daring to forgive yourself as well. Forgiveness is the birthright of every child who turns their heart toward Him, regardless of the failures or fears that have followed them. As you prepare for Christian meditation for sleep, unclench the fist of self-blame and open your hand to receive divine acceptance. God's love is not a reward for perfection, but a relentless pursuit of healing. T.D. Jakes reminds us that what shame has broken, God's love is determined to restore. Each breath you take is a quiet act of trust, releasing anxiety and welcoming peace. Psalm 91 becomes your lullaby, your nighttime melody, promising that those who dwell in the secret place of the Most High are not condemned but covered in mercy. Even when regret tries to steal your rest, let Psalm 23 speak peace over your soul. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Am I living like someone God has already redeemed? What would change if I truly believed that I am already delivered and honored by God? Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he hath redeemed from the hand of the enemy. Psalm 172, KJV. When regret tempts you to doubt your worth, choose to live out the truth of redemption daily, rooted in God's unwavering love. Declare it now. Type or whisper, "I live redeemed," and allow the truth of God's message tonight to become your foundation for tomorrow. Let your meditation tonight rest in this truth. Psalm 23 promises not just rest, but restoration and purpose. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. That anointing does not come after perfection, it comes in the midst of surrender. Let Christian meditation for sleep reclaim your true identity. You are not just forgiven. You are marked by grace. You are honored by God, not because of what you've done, but because of who He is. Let go of the idea that redemption is distant or delayed. God's message tonight brings it near, present, and personal. Pope Leo XIV's wisdom reminds us that the path of redemption is not paved with shame, but with surrender to divine love. Even when you feel uncertain, the covenant of mercy holds firm. Tonight, you are invited to believe that the work of restoration has already begun, and that nothing in your past can unwrite the story grace is telling. There is a sacred truth that often gets buried beneath layers of regret. You are already living under redemption. God's message tonight is not a promise of someday healing. It is the assurance that you are already being restored. Night prayer for regret opens your heart to this reality, not because your past has disappeared, but because God's mercy has rewritten its meaning. Psalm 91 declares, "He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him." This is not conditional. This is covenant. You are not left to wander in shame. You are escorted out of it by the one who calls you his own. Even in sleepless nights and silent tears, God sees you as redeemed. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that living redeemed means walking forward while still healing, still trusting, still trembling, and still loved. This is the miracle of God's message today. You can live in redemption even when you don't feel worthy of it. You don't have to chase peace. It is already being offered. Tonight, as the world quiets and the weight of regret presses on your soul, hear this. God's message of hope is reaching out to you. This is your sanctuary, a sacred pause at the end of the day for those who whisper, if only in the dark. If you find yourself replaying mistakes or wondering if God's mercy could ever reach the places you hide in shame, know this: you are not alone. The silence is not your enemy, but the canvas where God paints His mercy afresh. This is what you are not alone. The silence is not your enemy, but the canvas where God paints His mercy afresh. The heaviness you feel is not punishment. It's the aching cry of a soul longing to be made whole. Remorse may visit you, but it does not define you. In this stillness, God whispers, "You are not bound by your yesterdays. My grace is a new page every night, and my love covers every regret." As Psalm 91 assures, He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. Even from your own past, the voice of regret may try to convince you that you're unworthy, that your mistakes disqualify you, that you'll never be free. But God's message tonight is clear and unwavering. "I blot out your transgressions, and I remember your sins no more." When forgiving yourself feels impossible, know this: God's forgiveness is not just a distant hope, but a present and healing reality. As you breathe deeply, let the anxiety that chases sleep be released into God's arms. Let your final thoughts tonight not dwell on your failures, but on the unchanging love of the one who sees, forgives, and restores. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that healing begins with honesty. So tonight, be honest with God. Lord, I wish I could erase my mistakes. Regret keeps replaying in my mind. Can your forgiveness really reach even me? And the answer from the heart of heaven is yes, again and again, yes. Forgiveness is not a reward for the perfect, it is a gift for the willing. Pope Leo VI says it beautifully. Redemption flows wherever regret surrenders to grace. You are not trapped by your past. You are not stuck. You are seen. You are held by a God who delights in giving second chances and writing new endings. As you enter this night prayer, open your heart to the truth that God's mercy is greater than any regret you carry. Lay down the burden. Surrender the memory. Trust that your story is not over. Imagine, what if this night became the turning point? What if God's message today is the beginning of your healing? Where have you let regret steal your peace at night? Will you dare to believe God's promise of forgiveness is true for you? There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. Romans 8:1. When regret rises, speak God's promises out loud. Remind your heart that grace rewrites every story. If you are longing for a new beginning, type "forgiven" below, or offer a prayer for someone else who needs to know God's mercy tonight. In these quiet hours when sleep seems distant and regret grows louder, God's message reaches you. You are not alone, and you are not abandoned in your struggle. Every restless moment, every anxious heartbeat is seen and held by the one who calls you beloved. If you find yourself rehearsing your mistakes, longing for relief, and wondering if you are worthy of rest or redemption, hear this truth. God's forgiveness is not a future hope, but a present invitation. It begins not with self-punishment, but with surrender. When your thoughts spiral with guilt and what-ifs, hold fast to the promise of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He restores my soul. Even in your sleeplessness, God's mercy is awake, gently drawing you back to peace. The regret that keeps you awake does not have the final word. This moment of vulnerability is holy ground, where God writes new chapters with His grace. Gerard, God, soften your heart. You are not safe. God. T.D. Jakes reminds us, our pain is never wasted when placed in God's hands. Imagine the shepherd drawing near as you whisper, God, I can't undo my past. I am so tired from replaying my failures. You are met not with condemnation, but with tender compassion. This is God's message tonight. Every night is a doorway to forgiveness. The weight you've carried through the day can now be lifted as you welcome mercy, not only for what you've done, but for who you are becoming. Your sleeplessness is not evidence of failure, but an invitation to lean into the arms of grace. Let your nightly meditation turn from regret to hope. Allow God's presence to cradle your anxious thoughts and remind you that you are safe, accepted, and loved without condition. Lisa Bevere reminds us that God's grace is stronger than our darkest nights. Tonight, dare to believe, God, if you forgive me, I will forgive myself. The rest God offers is not just for the body, it's restoration for your soul. As your head touches the pillow, breathe deeply. God's message is covering you, promising that tomorrow does not have to carry yesterday's weight. In what ways has sleeplessness fed my regrets? Am I ready to start the journey of forgiveness tonight? Blessed is the one whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Psalm 32:1. When sleep is hard to find, speak God's promises aloud. Let His word be your lullaby, silencing regret and inviting peace. Write a simple prayer of surrender in your heart or in the comments. God, I receive your forgiveness. Allow tonight to be the first step toward healing and rest. There are nights when guilt seems endless, when old wounds and whispered failures play over and over, and the hope of morning feels impossibly far away. In these quiet hours, God's message enters the silence, steady, merciful, and unwavering. The cycle of regret and self-accusation can feel unbreakable, but tonight, hear this. Mercy is new every night. You are not called to earn rest by punishing yourself. Psalm 91 offers a shield for your soul. He will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. Even guilt itself cannot reach into the sanctuary God has prepared for you. As you reflect, picture God's forgiveness like a gentle river, washing away the stains of yesterday and leaving only the promise of a new beginning. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that confession is not weakness, but a sacred doorway to restoration. Your honesty tonight is not shameful. It is holy ground, where healing begins. Though the weight of your mistakes may feel overwhelming, you are not left to carry them alone. Let the voice of accusation be drowned out by the deeper truth of God's love. There is a place beyond guilt, a sacred space where forgiveness writes the final sentence over your story. Let the truth of Romans 8:1 settle deep into your spirit. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. Every breath you take tonight is an act of faith, a silent prayer that healing is possible. Pope Leo Kekups beautifully reminds us, regret that surrenders to grace finds redemption in the arms of the divine. The endless loop of guilt is broken when you dare to receive God's forgiveness and rest in His mercy. Let your soul settle into the truth that God's message is not for the faultless. It is for those who have stumbled, those who long to rise again. Rest tonight knowing mercy has the final word. What story does my guilt try to tell about who I am? Can I allow God's mercy to write a new ending tonight? If we confess our sins, He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. When guilt tries to define you, speak out God's promises. Let confession become the doorway to new peace and hope. Whisper a prayer of release, letting go of guilt, or type mercy as a declaration of your hope in God's promise. Let tonight be the turning point where mercy leads you to rest. As the night deepens and the shadows grow long, the ache in your heart may sharpen. Memories of failures, regrets, and missed opportunities settling over you like a heavy cloud. Yet even here, God's message tonight gently surrounds you, whispering that forgiveness is not a far-off dream, but a present miracle. Your heart was never meant to carry the crushing weight of every mistake. That is why God's mercy is so vast, so complete, and so accessible. In this sacred night prayer for regret, dare to trust that even your greatest sorrow can become the soil for new beginnings. Psalm 23 promises, He leads me beside still waters, He restores my soul. Restoration does not begin with denial, but with the gentle acceptance of God's healing love right where you are. Meditation tonight is not just the emptying of sorrow, it is the filling of your spirit with the deep assurance that you are forgiven fully and freely. Lisa Bevere reminds us that the only thing more relentless than regret is God's grace, a grace that refuses to let you go. This is the miracle of Christian meditation for sleep, not resting because your past is perfect, but because God's grace is. Could it be that my deepest regret is the seed of tomorrow's redemption? Am I willing to let God restore what seems too broken for healing? Blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Romans 4:7 KJV. When regret tries to harden your heart, surrender it to God and trust Him to transform even your wounds into wells of mercy and hope. Rest your heart tonight with this prayer. God, restore what regret has broken, or share a word of hope with someone who longs for forgiveness. Let grace have the last word as you drift into peaceful sleep. As you continue this sacred journey through the night, God's message today gently confronts the shadow of shame that lingers in your spirit. Shame is the voice that insists you are your worst mistake, but God speaks differently. You are defined by mercy, not by your failures. In this holy space of night prayer for regret, come just as you are, heavy with sorrow, weary from the weight of yesterday. God's forgiveness is not a fragile hope, but an unbreakable promise. Even when you feel sleepless, when anxiety swirls and regret presses in, God's presence offers more than consolation. It brings transformation. Psalm 91 assures you that His truth shall be your shield and buckler, guarding you against every lie that says you are unworthy of love. In your meditation, breathe deeply of God's compassion and let go of the shame that tries to bind your soul. Pope Leo THGO reminds us that the weight of regret is lifted in the arms of forgiveness. Each whispered prayer, each honest confession, is a step toward freedom. Tonight, as the shadows of the past try to shape your future, open your heart to the God who delights in giving new beginnings. God's message tonight is not about what you have lost, but about what is still possible. In the stillness, let your night prayer for regret become a launch pad for hope, trusting that no matter how tangled your story may seem, a new chapter is already unfolding. Psalm 23 gently sings over your weary spirit. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. This promise is not reserved for the blameless, but for every soul longing for a fresh start. Tonight's meditation isn't about emptying your mind, but filling it with the assurance that you are deeply, irrevocably loved. Pope Leo XVI's sacred wisdom echoes in the quiet. Redemption flows into every heart that surrenders regret for grace. God does not hold your past against you. He removes your transgressions as far as the east is from the west. Let the stillness of the night become your sanctuary, where your heart receives what your mind struggles to believe. You are forgiven, you are beloved, and you are being made new. The weight of self-condemnation cannot coexist with the truth of God's compassion. You are not called to earn peace through punishment, but to receive it through grace. Every breath, every whispered prayer, every honest confession becomes the soil where God plants restoration. In Christian meditation for sleep, let your identity be reshaped, not by your regrets, but by the relentless, redeeming love of the Father who calls you His own. Rest in that truth and let it carry you through the night. Where do you struggle to forgive yourself, even after God has forgiven you? Are you ready to receive the gift of peace tonight? As far as the east is from the west, so far hath He removed our transgressions from us. Psalm 103:12, KJV. When self-forgiveness feels hard, lean into God's love. Let His grace be the healing balm that makes rest possible. Say or type, "I receive forgiveness," and invite God to transform your rest into a healing encounter with His peace and grace. In this sacred night hour, when anxiety rises and regret clings tightly to your spirit, God's message tonight breaks through the noise. You are not trapped in fear. You are being led into renewal. Night prayer for regret is not only a release, but a holy restoration. You were never created to lie awake under the weight of shame, but to rise wrapped in mercy. Psalm 91 speaks life into your weary soul. Because thou hast made the Lord thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee. This is not a promise for the flawless. It is for the trembling, the tired, and the ones who dare to hope. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that anxiety is not simply fear, it is a longing for safety. Let this night prayer become your refuge, a shelter where God breathes new life into tired bones and anxious hearts. You are not forgotten. You are not beyond healing. You are being renewed. God's message is not to dismiss your anxiety, but to meet it with truth and compassion. God's message today is not condemnation, but transformation. Every anxious heartbeat, every sleepless moment driven by guilt, is now a sacred opportunity to awaken into God's love. Christian meditation for sleep is not escape, it's realignment. Psalm 23 declares, "He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness," not because you've never strayed, but because you belong to the shepherd who always comes for you. Let this be your awakening, the realization that freedom is not something you must earn, it is a gift already offered. Even now, God is restoring what was lost and rewriting what was wounded. Lisa Bevere reminds us that regret loses its grip when we dare to believe that we are still called, still chosen, still loved. Pope Leo Catacort's wisdom affirms, redemption flows wherever regret surrenders. And tonight, you surrender, not in defeat, but in faith. What part of my soul is awakening to the truth of God's mercy tonight? Where is God inviting me to walk in freedom I've been afraid to claim? If the Son therefore shall make you free, ye shall be free indeed. John 8:36, KJV. Spiritual awakening begins when we release regret and embrace the freedom God offers as a gift. Say aloud or type "I am awakening" as a sacred declaration that yesterday does not define you. God's message, In the hush of this sacred night, let the presence of the gentle shepherd draw close to your heart. God's message tonight is not one of punishment or reproach. It is a tender invitation to come home. If you feel lost in the thorns of regret, know this: the shepherd does not stand at a distance waiting for you to fix yourself. He comes searching for you, carrying mercy, not judgment. Night prayer for regret is where your soul is found again. Wrapped in the compassion of Psalm 23, He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. These are not poetic metaphors. They are living promises that God Himself tends to your weary heart. Jakes reminds us that the shepherd's rod is not a weapon of wrath, but an instrument of comfort and guidance. Even your failures become part of the path back to grace. God's message today is that you are being led, not driven, pursued, not pushed, restored, not rejected. In your sleeplessness, anxiety, and longing to believe again, let this truth anchor your soul. The shepherd knows every detour, every ache, every fall, and still calls you worthy of rest. Can I trust that God's grace has truly covered this day? Will I dare to sleep in the confidence that I am forgiven? For by grace are ye saved through faith. It is the gift of God. Ephesians 2:8, KJV. When the day ends heavy with regret, choose to rest in the reality of God's grace. Let it be your final act of worship before sleep. Whisper or type, "I end this night with grace," and let that be your sacred prayer as you fall into the peace only God can give. Am I willing to believe that God is preparing something beautiful beyond my regret? Will I let hope rise in the place shame once lived? For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. When regret tempts despair, anchor your heart in God's promise of hope and restoration. Type or whisper, "Hope is rising," as your declaration tonight, and let that be the banner you carry into tomorrow. Psalm 23 echoes the same truth. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. That path isn't paved by your performance, but by His promises. Christian meditation for sleep becomes a sacred rhythm, each breath releasing guilt, each exhale receiving peace. Pope Leo Catherine teaches that mercy is not a moment but a movement. When God says you are forgiven, He invites you to live like it, not in denial of your past, but in freedom from its grip. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us mercy lets us carry the lessons without the burden, and tonight you are lightened, you are loved, you are free. What would change if I truly walked as someone God has already forgiven? How does mercy invite me to treat myself differently tomorrow? Their sins and iniquities will I remember no more. Hebrews 10:17, KJV. Walking in mercy means living in freedom, choosing to embrace God's forgiveness and let it shape every step. Type or pray, "I walk in mercy," and rise tomorrow with your soul anchored in the truth that God says you are forgiven. What would it look like to turn the page emotionally, spiritually, and mentally tonight? Am I ready to let God write something new? Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2, KJV. When regret weighs heavily, surrender it to God and welcome His transformative grace to write your new story. Whisper or type, "I receive a new page," and let your sleep tonight become the soft beginning of the story God is still writing in you. Psalm 23 enfolds you in this promise. "Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. The presence of your past does not disqualify you from the table. God sets it anyway. He doesn't wait for perfection. He meets you in the mess and honors you with grace. Christian meditation for sleep becomes more than ritual. It becomes a resting place in divine affection. You are not striving to be enough. You are already known, held, and called by name. D.D. Jakes reminds us that abiding in love means we stop trying to earn what has already been given. This is the love that casts out fear, melts regret, and quiets the anxious soul. Dr. Anita Phillips often speaks of the healing power of secure love, and tonight, God offers it to you in full measure. Pope Leo Cap serveth sacred reflection, breathes life again. Redemption flows wherever regret surrenders to grace, and grace, tonight, flows through every word of Psalm 91, assuring you that you are not abandoned in your pain. You are protected, pursued, and poured into. God's message today is this: your story is not shame, it is love abiding. Or what would it feel like to stop striving and simply abide in God's love? Can I receive that love, even now, even after all that I regret? I have loved thee with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness have I drawn thee. Jeremiah 31:3, KJV. When regret tempts you to strive harder, choose instead to rest in the security of God's unchanging love. Let your final thought tonight be your boldest act of faith. Whisper or type, "I abide in love," and let that love carry you into peaceful rest. As the first light of dawn approaches and the long night gently yields, receive this benediction, a final embrace from the heart of God. You have journeyed through regret, whispered prayers in the silence, and sat with truths too deep for words. But now, in this sacred moment, God's message tonight becomes your covering and your crown. You are forgiven and you are free. What began as night prayer for regret has unfolded into a revelation of mercy, a deeper knowing that God never abandoned you in your sorrow. Psalm 91 now settles over your soul not as a defense, but as a lullaby. With long life will I satisfy him and shew him my salvation. This is your inheritance, not punishment, but peace, not rejection, but restoration. In this benediction, Psalm 23 walks with you still. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. These are not just verses. They are the rhythm of your redemption. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that true healing is sealed not by effort, but by surrender. And tonight, you have surrendered. The anxiety that once robbed your rest has been met by divine affection. The shame that once shaped your self-image has been dismantled by grace. T.D. Jakes would say, "You may have entered this night broken, but you arise chosen." Lisa Bevere would echo, "You are not a mistake. You are a miracle in the making." And Pope Leo XX speaks peace over your heart one final time. Redemption is not the end of the road. It is the road. Christian meditation for sleep has not just soothed your mind, it has restored your spirit. God's message today does not expire with the sunrise. It remains ever present, ever powerful, ever loving. Will I carry this forgiveness with me into today? Can I let the peace I found in the night shape how I walk in the light? Now the Lord of peace himself give you peace always by all means. The Lord be with you all. 2 Thessalonians 3:16, KJV. As you rise, speak this aloud or write it as your final prayer of the night. I am sealed in peace. I am held in grace. I am walking in God's message today.